2 months. Couldn't even make it to 2 full months after my previous videos on YandereDev before everything hit the fan once again. After 2.5 videos on Alex, I know that this isn't the sort of content my typical viewers are used to, and they're less likely to understand the situation and the goings-on, so I resolved I would not make any more unless he did something so unbelievably stupid and ridiculous that it was impossible to ignore. And we didn't even make it to 2 months before, surprise, he did something stupid and ridiculous. Again. What the heck, Alex? It's also worth mentioning that this video would have been released shortly after all this actually happened, back when all the other YouTubers were posting their videos on this topic. I had the audio recorded and was set to begin editing, but there was some more information that came out, so I figured it would be best to give some time for the dust to settle. Plus, I also made the really stupid and absolutely dumb smooth-brained decision to use the mod's actual name, which wasn't good from the get-go, but even more so after they'd expressed their wishes to just be left alone. Even though I'm aware their name was and still is plastered all over the place, I'd like to at least attempt to respect their privacy. And I'm going to ask anyone posting comments to do the same and not use their real name and keep the focus on Alex, not them. There's a lot we need to go over, and I'm aiming to keep this video under 84 years long, so I'm hoping everyone can keep up. If you want more information or to look into matters for yourself, you can check out the links included in the pinned comment, but oh my god, so much has happened in such a short time, and we need to talk about it. This latest dumpster fire in the Yandere simulator saga began on October 20th after Alex banned one of his own longtime moderators, who I will be referring to as Mod A, who also suffers from dissociative identity disorder. And Alex posted this announcement to the rest of his mod team.
Alright, I've got to make a statement. I can't take DID seriously. I don't think it's a real thing. I think it's a made-up fantasy that some people indulge in as an excuse to occasionally roleplay as different people. I can't take it anymore. I can no longer pretend like it's not the weirdest, dumbest, cringiest thing ever. It makes me uncomfortable and creeps me out, and I don't want to see that weird crap in here anymore.
Really, Alex? You defend pedophiles saying you don't feel comfortable ridiculing them and you feel bad for them because you believe they're just suffering from a mental disorder, but this is where you draw the line? Someone having DID that hasn't affected you negatively in any way at all, ever? Let's just think about that for a moment. Alex sympathizes more with pedophiles, those who want to do unspeakable things to children, than those who suffer from an actual legitimate mental disorder that does not harm any other person. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't even try to remain objective here. This shit is ridiculous. Alex, please go fuck yourself.
I've made the decision to remove from this server. I can no longer play along with someone's weird fantasies or pretend like their silly role-playing is normal.
Oh wow, Alex being ableist and treating mental illnesses and disorders like garbage. Who could have ever foreseen this development? This is entirely out of Alex's character and has certainly never been foreshadowed by previous behavior. Nope. Definitely not. I'm very uppity right now, if you couldn't tell, and we're just getting started. For those who are unfamiliar with dissociative identity disorder, or DID, the best abridged explanation I can possibly give is that it's a mental disorder caused by repeated or severe trauma in early childhood, so the brain puts up these amnesiatic walls to block out that trauma as a defense mechanism. And in doing so, it creates other identity states, or alters as they're commonly referred to. This is why in the past, DID was known as multiple personality disorder, but dissociative identity disorder is the more proper term. I've seen the argument that some scientists don't believe DID is a real condition, which, you know, some scientists also say the earth is flat and vaccines cause autism, so just because some crackpot in a lab coat makes a statement doesn't automatically make it fact. Psychologists worldwide have described DID as a treatable disorder with specific causes. It's recognized in the Internal Classification of Diseases and the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, with a plethora of medical evidence to support it. I promise, it's really not that hard to have a quick look into the years and years of research into this disorder and educate yourself a bit. So the long and short of it is, with this bastardized description of mine, is that DID is real. Which brings us back to this message posted in Alex's mod chat about Mod A. Now, obviously, by logical thinking and deductive reasoning, if this was posted in a mod chat, that means it got leaked by a mod. Oh wow, imagine that. With this screenshot quickly spreading among the Yandere simulator community, Alex went into immediate damage control mode, even adding a blurb about it to his infamous debunk page, and just like pretty much everything else written there, he deflects, makes excuses, flat out lies to the public, and paints himself out to be the innocent little baby victim.
In short, I do believe that it's a real condition, but I also believe that there are people who fake mental illness as an excuse for inappropriate behavior. One of the people on my moderation team claimed to have dissociative identity disorder. I was supportive towards him for multiple years. Gradually, after observing his behavior for a long time, I slowly grew skeptical towards him. The more I interacted with him, the more I began to doubt that he actually had real DID. Eventually, I drew the conclusion that he was faking the disorder and was using it as an excuse to roleplay as one of several characters anytime he wanted. Faking a mental illness is a reprehensible thing to do, so I made the decision to remove him from the moderation team. When I wrote that post, I was very fired up because I believed that I had just caught someone faking a mental illness. In that post, I made a sweeping generalization about all people claiming to have DID, which was a mistake on my part. It is not the existence of DID that I am skeptical about, only people who lie about having it as an excuse for inappropriate behavior. It was a post hastily written in a heated moment, and doesn't reflect how I actually feel. Spreading the post and making the accusation that I'm ableist is an example of how anti-YandereDev community paints a false image of me without knowing the truth or the details surrounding the situation.
Obviously, to anyone with a brain, this completely contradicts not only what he stated to the rest of the mod team, but also in his own apology to Mod A, where Alex continues to tout the belief that DID is a completely made-up disorder. Saying you meant something drastically different from what you actually said is a horrifically bogus excuse. And I, like many others, can't help but notice the absurdity of someone claiming an entire mental disorder is hogwash, who also, in very recent times, used mental illness as an excuse for lack of productivity. Which again, I said in my previous videos, I'm not here to say whether or not Alex's claim for his own mental state is or isn't real. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not the least bit qualified to make any sort of accusations about whether someone is faking their mental health issues, since doing so only contributes to the ongoing crisis of spreading medical misinformation by those who lack any sort of credentials necessary to make statements such as that. But it is highly ironic that shortly after describing his own deteriorating mental state, he then quickly turns around and lambasts not just another person, but one of his biggest longtime supporters. Alex is the first to point out the wrong with everyone else's actions, but he cannot see the fault in his own. He really is the epitome of the narcissist prayer. It didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserve it. To absolutely no one's surprise, after years of working closely together and becoming friends, the other moderators didn't take too kindly to this caustic response to one of their own, and reportedly about 8 of them completely up and abandoned ship. Honestly, I don't know how many mods had before or after this mass walkout, but considering how support for him has already been dwindling over the years, it seems like a lot. In the following days, the steady decline of the Yandere simulator community progressed swiftly into a nosedive, particularly following the release of multiple private messages between Alex and one of his biggest and most outspoken supporters and former mod, Cleveland. The redemption arc no one expected. And these messages are really not good. They include different things, such as Alex admitting all the students in his game that are being sexually exploited are in fact underage, despite what he says publicly to quell the haters. That he simply doesn't care about actually getting his game to function because he's not interested in fixing bugs. That he views his moderators and other people who help him as tools. And worst of all, when Mod A began having a major depressive episode and became suicidal as a a direct result of Alex's actions, Alex essentially said he didn't care. And say what you will about the ethics of releasing private messages, it's certainly not the greatest thing to do, but personally I feel if the morals are outweighed by the need for the public to know this particular information, then it's a forgivable offense for me. And a lot of this was definitely stuff that I feel should be known, because the way Alex has been handling this situation, as with all others in the past, is beyond atrocious. Although I will say it's a little difficult to take Cleveland's backtracking seriously, because shortly before Alex had started hurling insults at him, Cleveland was still defending him and lying about certain issues, particularly about the age of the sexually exploited characters in the game. And then he even went on to backtrack his backtracking by removing all posts related to this entire situation. So, take that as you will, I suppose. Part of why I wanted to make this video is because I'm a huge advocate for mental health, especially being someone who suffers from certain illnesses myself. In the time since this whole situation unfolded, I've also met and become good friends with someone who has DID. And to simply imagine some human trash hurting a person I care about because of a mental disorder they have no control over, it boils my blood. So to see someone with such a massive platform and so many supporters dismiss an entire disorder that already has such a horrific stigma against it, which millions and millions of people all over the world suffer from, then berate those who have supported him for years even when one becomes suicidal as a direct result of his actions, and continue to lie and manipulate the public to twist the narrative in his favor and paint himself as the victim of some awful defamation campaign. It's quite frankly disgusting. There's no other way to describe it. Although it's far from surprising to anyone who has been paying attention to Alex's behavior over the years, this isn't about being fixated on drama, as Alex likes to claim. It's about how he repeatedly hurts people around him, and he just doesn't seem to care, because he continues to make excuses and throw himself a pity party. And while many of his fans have disavowed Alex, there are still plenty who support him. The most common I've seen, even on my previous videos, is that they support the game, but not Alex, which doesn't quite work in this situation. It is not possible to separate creator from creation when A, the aforementioned creator is ultimately the main source of problems with the creation, and B, they're so deeply entrenched in the development of this project and is still the primary person who benefits the most from it. So any support and profit given towards the game also goes directly to Alex. Similar to how many Harry Potter fans have strayed from the franchise after J.K. Rowling went loud and proud with her turfiness and transphobic attitude. On the other hand, for example, when Notch sold his rights with Minecraft over to Microsoft several years ago, he is no longer associated with the game or development of it. So if he does something reprehensible, then players don't have to feel morally questionable to support the game because he's no longer benefiting from it. Don't get me wrong, I can understand it's difficult to fully separate yourself from something you've greatly enjoyed, but you have to ask yourself if it's more important to you in this instance to play a game that fetishizes underage girls, made by a narcissist with pedophilia accusations against him, who treats his moderators, supporters, and anyone with a mental illness like garbage. Sometimes it's better to just expand your horizons and set better standards for the content you engage in. There are also those unfortunate people, likely in the single-digit age range, who enthusiastically throw themselves at Alex's feet and not only condone, but wholeheartedly agree with anything and everything he says. And while it's definitely not ideal, there's likely no helping these less than mature individuals until they grow and learn and realize that this sort of thing just isn't okay whatsoever. In the aftermath, Mod A made a blog post asking for privacy in space, which is more than appropriate, but also essentially saying that Alex should not be cancelled for this incident. I wonder where they got that idea from. I'm certain Alex isn't still manipulating and gaslighting them behind the scenes. No. Totally not. This has me very conflicted because I fully understand wanting to not be involved and move on from this entire situation. Totally get that, and I agree that is what's best, which is why I'm trying to focus more on Alex than the others involved. But it is a bit bothersome to say that people shouldn't criticize Alex or his actions and that this sort of thing is normal or acceptable in any way, which it's not. And I realize that this post was made while still in the midst of all the drama and it was a very turbulent time, and while I want nothing more than for Mod A to heal and be okay, this post reeks of manipulation and gaslighting from Alex, as he's so often known to do. It's not the gremlins and haters making Alex look bad, it's his own actions that do that. This isn't about cancel culture or trying to ruin someone's career over casual pettiness. This is about repeated problematic behavior to such a high degree from someone who clearly has no concern or respect for anyone but himself, and should be held accountable for what he does when that line is crossed. You cannot do atrocious things again and again, then try to hide behind cancel culture when people get upset about it. Alex never learns from anything anyone says, never tries to improve, and never acknowledges the full extent of what he's done. He only blames, deflects, and wallows in self-pity, believing he's the one always being wronged. When it feels like everyone in the world is suddenly out to get you, find the commonality. Who is the instigator in every situation? If everyone around you seems like an asshole, then in reality, the asshole is likely you. This isn't cancel culture, baby. This is consequences. I believe Mod A has since decided to return to Alex's service, which is entirely their decision, and I wish them nothing but the best, and I sincerely hope they are doing well. But I really feel like it's an extraordinarily bad and dangerous idea that will only cause their mental health to deteriorate further, because it's essentially like an abuse victim returning to their abuser. I know it's not easy to leave. It's what you know, and what's comfortable in a sense in the familiarity. But in the long run, it's not good for you. Brushing this aside and excusing it as normal behavior just allows it to continue happening, which we have seen many times from Alex before. Again, I think it would be for the better for all involved to take some time away from the internet, seek professional help if they aren't already, because again, I just want the best for everyone, including Alex to an extent. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. Whether we like it or not, Alex is a public figure, and his words reach millions of people, many of whom are very young. I'd even go as far as to say this applies to the majority. And it's important to recognize whenever someone with such a large status does something so reprehensible like this. Obviously, sending death threats and harassing someone and the like is awful, and no one should do that ever. That should go without saying, but some people just want to be assholes, and that negative energy needs to go somewhere. But criticism does not equate to harassment. And if this sort of behavior is not called out and publicly acknowledged, then Alex's impressionable audience will wrongly think that this sort of behavior is perfectly fine. This isn't the result of one singular event. It's not a simple mistake. It's a pattern of repeated behavior that's been ongoing for many years. And people need to realize that this is unacceptable and stop giving support to the wrong person. Fortunately, I think many people have been very supportive of the former mods, so it's probably best to give everyone some space and time to heal. So that's about where we're at this point in time. Alex continues to dig himself into such a deep hole that he's on track to reach the Earth's core in the near future, while more and more of his followers rightly turn against him. Could this be the end of Yandere's simulator? It could possibly go in that direction, but I believe Alex is way too stubborn to let it go that easily, and it would likely take something far more drastic in order to reach that conclusion. It's been proven he barely cares about his own game or even getting it to function properly. It's currently sitting in development limbo and could likely stay there. I can't imagine any potential investors looking at all this baggage and laundry list of controversies Alex brings to the table and decide they want to give their money to him. But as always, I would highly encourage everyone to distance themselves from Alex and Yandere Simulator. There are far better ways to spend your time and money than inflating the ego and pockets of such a horrible person. Speaking of which, once again, as I've done before, since Alex likes to attempt to falsely discredit all negative videos about him as being made by clickbait drama YouTubers looking to profit off of slander and lies, I'm going to be donating and matching all ad revenue from this video to charity, even though last time the video got immediately demonetized upon uploading, so I just did a flat donation, so it's whatever. Last time it was RAIN, the National Sexual Assault Hotline, and this time it will be NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the largest grassroots mental health organization in the United States dedicated to building better lives for the 1 in every 5 individuals affected by mental illness. If you would like to know more about NAMI or make a donation yourself, you can check out the link in the video description description or pinned comment. And if you'd like to learn more about dissociative identity disorder specifically, there are many educational channels. My personal favorite is Dissociated, and I will link their channel in the pinned comment as well. There's some very informative content, and you will definitely learn quite a lot directly from a DID system, so be sure to check them out. That's all for today. Even though these videos tend to get quite a lot of views, I hope this time it'll be at least a significant amount of time before I have to make another one, because then at least it means Alex hasn't been all sorts of horrible for a while. Hopefully I never have to bring him up ever again, and I can go on pretending like he and his stupid half-assed attempt at a game never existed. Thank you everyone for watching. If you're new to my channel, I have plenty of entertaining and drama-free gaming content you can check out. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, I would very much appreciate it, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye!